Hello and welcome to the Art of the Writing Critique. This is a craft talk that explores a tried and true form of having your work read by others, why giving and receiving feedback on your work is so important, why it is, in my opinion, the number one way to grow and get better as a writer. My name is Kate Meadows, and I am a writer, editor, and writing coach with an MFA in professional writing. I learned the art of the writing critique. It wasn't called that, but it was basically a workshop format for our writing while I was in graduate school, getting my degree in professional writing. And since then, I have utilized this format for critiquing other people's work and coordinating writing groups that are with people who are seeking feedback on their writing. So I'm a coordinator and network for writers groups, and I live in Rapid City, South Dakota. Uh, Critique groups that I've been a part of and led, people bring copies of something that they're working on to share. And then we ask them to be prepared to offer feedback on works of others in the group. So this method of uh, getting feedback on your work is not all about you receiving. It's also about there's a giving component of that too, where we're going to talk about the importance of you uh, giving feedback also and the benefits that that actually provides to you as a writer, how giving feedback on other people's work actually makes you a better writer in the process. All right, so why is critiquing work and receiving feedback on our work so important? Why is this so important? A few ideas here. It challenges you to notice the details beneath the surface. This is true regardless of whether you're a reader or a writer. As a reader, you become a more critical and curious reader. Reading other people's work helps you to become more curious and critical, knowing kind of spotting or realizing what to look for rather than just, a surface glance and say, yeah, that's pretty good or that's terrible, right? Uh, Critiquing challenges you to notice details beneath the surface. Also, as a writer, from the writer's perspective, you develop a greater awareness of what's working and what's not working well in your work. And of course, we're not talking about just things like, hey, this word is spelled wrong, or you used affect with an A when it should be effect with an E, right? Like those things matter, but there's a lot more that goes into this. Critiquing work makes you a better reader. So by noticing and questioning more in the story, the quality of the story will matter more to you. The more often you critique work, the more comfortable you'll get with the process. I know this from experience. You start to know intuitively what to look for, and you inherently know what questions to ask of the work or of the writer. Critiquing has absolutely made me a more confident reader. As a reader, I know I'm looking not only at the surface, so what is happening, I'm also looking at how the story is organized, what voice or point of view it's in, whether the elements the writer is using is effective. So, for example, I have a client who is writing a novel, and he would often switch points of view, meaning that some of the chapters would be in first person using the I pronouns. Some chapters would be in third person using they or he, she pronouns, right? And so being able to recognize that and not only say, something's off about this or this feels jarring, but I know exactly what is not working and I know why. And a lot of that experience has come through reading works in progress of other writers. And then finally, critiquing work makes you a better writer. Obviously, right? That's partly, I mean, a huge part of why we're here. First, being a better reader already makes you a better writer. Why? Because you're more tuned in to the details that really matter. And critiquing helps you to develop a more critical eye for how to pay attention to your own story. So even when you're reading and you're providing feedback on someone else's work, you are also almost subconsciously thinking about your own work and how you can apply these things that you're learning or insight you're gaining to your own story, what elements you need to be focusing on, what might be missing from your own work. I have a motto when it comes to critique and feedback in works in progress. Here's my motto. It is to foster an environment that is nurturing and encouraging while being bold enough to provide constructive, honest criticism. People respond well to this philosophy. Why? I think the words themselves speak it. The nurturing and encouraging, because we all need that. I don't care how tough you are, we all need it. But also, there's that boldness about it, speaking the truth, but how you say that truth really matters. So you want to provide constructive and honest criticism. Why is that so important? Well, if you put yourself in the writer's shoes, what is the writer after? I mean, if the writer is after a pat on the back, go to your mom, right? That's not what we're here for. We're here for, yes, we want to know what is working well, but we also want to know what maybe isn't working so well. So the writers want that constructive, honest criticism. At least I hope you do. If you want to grow and get better as a writer, you should want that. So my motto, foster an environment that is nurturing and encouraging while being bold enough to provide constructive, honest criticism. That's what I am after every time I am providing feedback on a work in progress or leading a writers group that offers feedback. So I want to offer in our craft talk today 3 ways to critique a work in progress. There is no one tried and true method. There's no do this, don't do this. There's no formula, so to speak. But there are 3 ways that I want to suggest that you might think about how to critique a work in progress. There's more than one way to read a piece of writing. So we think about layers of critique and layers of the writing itself. Okay. So the first level, what I call level 1, is looking at content. This is a broader view that you're taking. You're really zooming out and you're asking what questions, like what is this piece about? You're thinking about the piece as a whole. Reading for content gets into the meat. You're engaging with the work beneath the surface. You're asking questions such as who or what is central? What is at stake? Where am I engaged as a reader, right? Kind of broader, we're taking broader strokes here. You can spend a lot of time critiquing at this level. This type of critiquing is taxing on your brain. It takes some mental power here. It wears on you because you are thinking so deeply about what the piece is trying to accomplish. So that's level 1, content. Level 2, you can look at a piece in terms of structure. How is it built? How is it organized, right? When you read for structure, you're taking a step back. You might think of reading for structure as a sort of macro or 30,000-foot view of the piece. You're asking questions such as, how is the overall flow? Does the organization make sense? The way that this story or this essay or this book is organized, does that make sense? Do some parts work, whereas others do not? You're thinking about the piece again as a whole. If a piece is organized chronologically, does that organization feel like an appropriate and engaging fit, given what the writer is trying to accomplish, right? Because there's more than one way to tell a story, right? Very much so. There's more than one way to organize a story or a piece of writing. I teach another course on story structures where I give 7 to 8 examples of stories told in different ways. So you can actually see this at work. A story does not always have to be told chronologically, nor does it have to be told from the same point of view from beginning to end. Now, I know I mentioned the client of mine who was switching points of view. And I don't mean it's okay to write in first person in one and third person in the other. What I mean by switching points of view, you could have one chapter be from this character's perspective. You could have another chapter be from another character's perspective, but the whole piece itself is told in the same point of view, meaning like third person. It could be told in third person if you're switching perspectives like that. So a story does not always have to be told chronologically or from the same point of view. When you're reading a piece of writing through this structure lens, you can ask yourself, is this the best way to tell this story? Again, this is a question that fits whether you are the writer or a reader. You can ask as the writer, is this the best way to tell the story? You can ask as a reader, is this the best way? Do you see how you can apply the question in both ways? You can ask, does the story come across effectively the way the writer is stringing it together? Am I moved? Am I stirred? Am I interested? Am I curious? Or am I bored? Am I confused? Am I, feeling like I'm missing information? You can ask, is it cohesive? Does it flow, right? How is the flow of the story? You're looking at the bigger pieces and parts and discerning whether they make a strong whole. So this is level 2, reading for structure. Finally, we have level 3, which is proofreading and grammar. This is the most common one, the one that most people, when they say, will you edit my book or will you proofread my work? This is what they're asking for. But a lot of people don't realize that there's so many other levels beneath this, right? So this third level, proofreading and grammar, is really the most basic form of critique. It is pretty self-explanatory. However, writers tend to neglect these basic tenets of the written word. So when should you use its, ITS, for example, versus IT apostrophe S, right? Tell me the last time you saw a billboard where the word its was used wrong. I see it all the time. It drives me crazy. Or there versus there versus there, right? Which form of there do you use? Or your versus your? Where do you need the apostrophe? When do you not? This is elementary school stuff, but you would not believe how often we see it as editors mixed up or incorrect in a piece of writing. Then we have common punctuation mistakes, such as, again, those misplaced apostrophes. You wrote on sentences a lot, just really long, lengthy sentences that really express multiple ideas before the period, right? So in the editing world, this type of editing is called line editing. It is the last layer or level of editing a piece gets before it is ready for publication. As a critiquer, you don't have to put it upon yourself. It's not your job to catch every little mistake that the writer makes. You're not reading it and going like, I'm going to find all the mistakes in here, right? That's not your job. But if you do notice a glaring error as you go along, mark it. It doesn't hurt. And put yourself in the writer's shoes. If shoe, for example, was spelled wrong in your work and a critiquer noticed, a reader noticed, would you want that reader to tell you that, okay, hey, I know we're looking at the bigger picture here at, the structure, how a piece is structured or the actual content, but by the way you spelled shoe wrong, like, would you want to know that as the writer? I certainly would. So be generous with the feedback that you are giving. Remember why you are seeking feedback from the beginning and why you are giving it. Is it to simply be patted on the back and told, well done? No, that's not why we're here, right? Your motivation for requesting feedback on your work should be to make it better. Now, in that process, do you want to know what's working well? Of course, but the critique and the feedback doesn't end there. It shouldn't end there, right? If a critiquer does not help you improve your work, then the critique is a waste of time. If you are a reader, put yourself in the writer's shoes. If you were the writer seeking feedback, what sort of feedback would be most beneficial? And then do that. Do that as someone who is giving feedback. One of the best things about manuscript critiquing is that it is often symbiotic. You help out a fellow writer, that writer in turn helps you. Another benefit is there is no best time to seek feedback on a piece of writing. You might ask for feedback in the middle of a first draft. You might ask for feedback on your third round of revisions. There is no one time to go out, elsewhere to seek critique outside of you. So I hope this talk has been helpful, has given you a lot to think about, and has helped you to better appreciate the role of writing critique in your work. Now, what's next when it comes to your writing? I want to leave you with a few options you can consider. So I do offer one-on-one critiques for writing. You can learn more at my website, katemeadows.com, and click Get Started. You'll be directed to a contact form that asks a few questions about your work and your writing goals. Once you complete it, I receive it, and then I follow up with you via email. Another sort of what's next step is consider joining a writing group. If you do belong to a writing group already, that is terrific. Feel free to take what you have learned in this course and bring it back to your writing group and put it into practice. If you do not belong to a writing group but would like to join one, I want to invite you into my StoryCorps online writing community. We have writers in that group that are either forming groups of their own right now or are looking for other writers to connect with to form groups based on common goals. And our StoryCorps community is a wonderful place to make that, to network with other writers and see about joining or starting a group of your own. Okay, so to get more information about that, you can again visit my website, www.katemeadows.com. Thank you so much for being on the talk today. I hope that it's been insightful and that you are equipped now to go out and graciously receive feedback on your own work, but also graciously give feedback. So I will leave you with this quote from author Tobias Wolff. He says, "To see your own work through someone else's eyes for a moment is helpful. My own experience is you can learn something from others. I certainly have." Thank you for being here today. Check out my website at www.katemeadows.com, and I hope to see you on another call very soon. Bye for now.